Secretary Weber, you've been very open about being the daughter of sharecroppers and now being the first Black Secretary of State in California. How significant is that full circle moment for you?
Well, it's quite significant. You know, when one stepped back, initially I didn't think a lot about it, but when you step back and really begin to see the circle of life that you've been involved in and know where you've come from and know how hard it was for your parents to try to vote, know that my grandparents never got a chance to vote because they died before the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And even though they had the right to vote, my parents never registered to vote because they couldn't in Arkansas unless they risked their lives, which every day was a risk of their life, just existing and working in Arkansas and trying to have some sense of dignity. So to look at that and see how difficult life was and how the struggle was to get to California and know that my parents were so committed to voting that to have their daughter, you know, never dreamed about, to have their daughter really responsible for over 20 million voters in California is quite a hallelujah moment, I guess one would say, to those in my family and members of my church, and others are just in awe every time they see my name on something that deals with voting or the voting information guide, or somebody gets a new license for business and they see it. And I had a friend told me he was crying because he got his license to be a notary, and my brother got one and he said, your name was at the top and mine was at the bottom. Oh my goodness, you know, look how far we've come. And so it's really, it is for those who have known me all my life and know that what we've done in California, it's really quite a unique moment for them. Yes.
Voting rights is certainly in a perilous state right now. Why do you think it's such a divisive issue, and what concerns you the most about what we're seeing?
You know, voting is powerful. And for years, people who were denied the opportunity to vote just kind of shuffled it off and said, doesn't matter whether you vote, things will remain the same. You know, it's never going to change. And so I think with the election of Obama, and people began to see the possibility of those who were poor, those who were left out, those who were of color, that they could actually make a difference. People began to register to vote. And then, of course, with the last election, people began to see the necessity for voting because they were concerned about the direction we were going. And so people became empowered. And, you know, and I tell people the most powerful thing we can do is to vote, because it doesn't matter that I'm Secretary of State. It doesn't matter that Biden is president. He gets one vote, just like the person on the street who's homeless. And that's a powerful statement about who you are and what you have. And so when people begin to recognize that folks are making it easier for people to vote, and those who traditionally had not voted and always basically gave up their vote and their power to someone else, they want to restrict it. They don't like the outcomes. They don't believe that these folks who they have not validated should have the right to vote.
Can you tell me, just talk about the role of Black women historically in elections, in voting?
Well, you know, Black women have always in this country been sometimes ignored and yet counted on. You know, we've been like kind of the silent force for change. You know, when you look at the civil rights movement, and I've as a professor, I've studied it, and there were so many women who sat behind the throne and who made the civil rights era happen, whether it was Xeroxing materials or getting ready for the March on Washington, you know, whatever it was. There were just so many unsung heroes that were female, and we kind of pushed men forward because that was the society in which we existed. And yet everyone knew that you could always count on the sister in the church on the front row to make sure that things were going to happen. I had a preacher used to say that when the women leave the church, he said, I'm going to preach one more sermon, and that'll be fare you well, my brethren, fare you well. He said, because it's all going to fall apart. I've watched the media change its face from just men to women and to basically to Black women taking leadership roles because we are strong, we're smart, we're articulate, and we've had to be. I mean, we didn't have a choice.
Thank you for being so generous with your time and for
Thank you.
the conversation.